sadly, one of the great unspoken tragedies of our contemporary culture is this dismissal of the inner worlds, is this censorship of the inner worlds. That I think it is such an effective censorship, such a drastic censorship, such an unprecedented censorship, that we don't even question it. It is like somebody took away part of our birthright and took it away to such a degree we didn't even realize it belonged to us. And I think it is important, in order to understand this, to realize how censored our consciousness is, quite deliberately censored. And to realize we are probably the only civilization in, as far as I can see, going back in human history, from which so much has been denied, so much has been censored. And so much has been censored so effectively that we don't even question it. We are brought up in this culture to believe that the visible, tangible world is all there is. And this is quite remarkable, because we're the only culture that believes that. If you go back, for example, in European history, just to the Middle Ages, everybody there understood they were part of what was called the Great Chain of Being, a connection of many different levels of reality, starting with the divine, going through all the angelic kingdoms, and the human being was in the center of this great chain of being. They didn't see themselves as just belonging to a physical, tangible world. It didn't even occur to them. And yet that heritage has been denied us to such a degree we don't even question it. It's a particularly Western phenomena. If you go, for example, to the Far East, if you go to Bali, they have spirit houses in their garden, because there has to be a place for the spirit world to exist in relationship to where they live. If it is just part of their culture. And for us it is just strange stories and strange myths. And so we have been blinkered, incredibly blinkered. I was very intrigued listening on the radio a while ago to hear a scientist saying that what we see with our eyes in the galaxies is actually 3% of what is there. That dark matter and dark energy make up the other 97%, or maybe 96%. And yet we're told that's what there is. And we've been told it so effectively and so efficiently for the last centuries that we don't even question it. And again, this whole heritage has been denied us, with, I think, disastrous results of so much has been taken away from us so effectively. And it means our access to the inner worlds, to the spiritual worlds, have also been denied us. We've lost those tools, and part of the, for example, the work of Carl Jung was to begin to reclaim access to part of this interior world. It's one of the nearest worlds to our human consciousness is the symbolic world, the world of symbols. There is an interior world that is in which symbols exist as a living reality. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. And interestingly, at the same time as Carl Jung rediscovered this interior realm, there was somebody who studied Sufism who rediscovered it in Sufism, because it has always belonged to Sufism, this intermediate world. Henry Corbin discovered it in the work of the great Sufi Ibn al-Arabi, who understood what he called the use of the creative imagination as a way to access this interior world. And so that is one of the first inner worlds that we began to get given back. Again, if you were in the Middle Ages, the symbolic world was very present around you. It was, in a way, the bread and butter of life as much as the physical world. And you just have to go to the cathedrals, the Gothic cathedrals, which were full of symbols, because symbols was what nourished people, what gave them meaning. In the symbolic world, they saw their inner place within the universe, not just their physical place, their inner place, and they were nourished by this symbolic world. We have traces of that, for example, in the Catholic Mass, in the symbol of the chalice or the cross. These are images that come from the symbolic world, and they exist in that reality. There's a very interesting phenomena in the last decade or so about a particular re-emergence of images from this symbolic world. One thinks particularly of the image of Gaia, this ancient goddess of the earth, which was present in humanity's collective imagination, in their consciousness, for many, many centuries, until it went back into the unconscious, got forgotten about, and then, as many of you know, just a few decades ago, Rupert Sheldrake brought it back into our consciousness with this image that the world is a living being, which he called Gaia. And somehow this archetype, this inner symbol, has captivated our imagination, has spoken to us. It has emerged again from the inner world and come to meet our consciousness. It is a living symbol. It's not an image of something. It is a living, energized, numinous presence that speaks to us. And many people are drawn into this emerging archetype, into this sense of the earth as a living being that is imaged in this ancient Greek goddess Gaia. And that is one example of something from the inner world coming to meet us.